Have you ever wondered why some relatively flat landscapes have odd variations of hills and dips in the ground? One cause is actually glaciers, ancient glaciers that is, that are formed across continents like North America and stretched as far south as Kentucky in the most recent ice age. Glaciers are formed from the accumulation, compaction, and recrystallization of snow into very dense ice, much more dense than the ice in your kitchen freezer. Glaciers have an upper portion, which is brittle, and a lower portion, which is malleable, like plastic or silly putty. Glaciers will advance, or grow, when the upper portion accumulates faster than the lower portion can melt. Glaciers will retreat or melt when the accumulation is slower than the melting rate. The advance and retreat of glaciers over hundreds of thousands of years eroded the landscape and created those hills and dips that you may see in the flatlands of the Midwest. As glaciers retreated over those hundreds of thousands of years, glacial drift was deposited. That is the sediment that is left over in the wake of the retreating glacier. The two types of glacial drift are till and stratified drift. Till is an unsorted mix of sediment deposited directly by the dense ice. Stratified drift is sorted sediment that is deposited by meltwater of the retreating glacier. Till forms into drumlins and moraines. Drumlins are hills that look like inverted spoons with a steep side that faces the direction from which the ice advanced. Moraines are ridges or layers of till that form along the outer margins of glaciers. Any ridge which is formed when the glacier is stable for an extended amount of time is called an end moraine. The terminal end moraine marks the furthest advancement of the glacier, while the recessional end moraine marks a spot where the glacier became stationary during retreat. The layers of till that a glacier deposits along the flat surface is called the ground moraine. Stratified drift, the other type of glacial drift, comes in a few different forms. The outwash plain is stratified drift deposited by meltwater streams, and it surpasses the terminal end moraine. Kames are also composed of stratified drift when sediment collects in openings of stagnant glacial ice. An esker is a ridge composed of sand and gravel deposited by a meltwater stream flowing through the glacier to its terminus. A kettle is a depression created by blocks of ice lodged in glacial deposits. When the depression fills with water, they become kettle lakes. Glaciers that form in mountainous or alpine regions create additional landforms. The V-shaped valleys of alpine areas become U-shaped after the glacier retreats. Hanging valleys are also created, which form waterfalls or steep streams. An arete is a narrow knife-like ridge that separates two adjacent glaciated valleys. A cirque is a basin at the head of a glaciated valley. Tarns are small lakes that occupy a cirque. Paternoster lakes are chains of small lakes in a glacial trough. And horns are pyramid-like peaks formed by glacial action in 3 or more cirques surrounding a mountain summit. Even if you don't have a mountain in your backyard, it's very possible that there might be glacial drift in the form of a ground moraine. Here are some pictures I took from Swallow Cliff in Palos Park, Illinois. This was during an earth science class. We hiked to the top of the moraine and saw evidence of erosion and glacial drift. The boulder right there is actually from Canada, but it was transported by the advancing and retreating of glaciers. Today, the moraine is used by hikers and people looking for a good workout. The landscapes we travel every day have a story that is hundreds of thousands of years in the making. The one of Swallow Cliff and the surrounding suburbs involves a glacier that advanced and retreated through the accumulation and melting of glacial ice. It eroded the land and left its imprints in the form of glacial drift, like moraines, drumlins, and eskers. The next time you take a walk in the park, try to imagine what ancient climate features formed the very landscape you are walking on.